The Dead Sea has at last dried up, but now a terrifying development has taken place. The Dead Sea, which has attracted visitors for centuries due to its natural beauty, is now completely devoid of water. What at first appeared to be a natural disaster is becoming a catastrophe for the area. There is a terrifying occurrence that has scientists baffled. Come with us as we investigate the shocking truth behind the mysterious events that have put the region's security at risk and may have global repercussions. As the Middle Eastern sun continues to bake the region, the salty Dead Sea, the lowest point on Earth, continues to evaporate. It's a slow-moving problem for the people who live on its edges, but replenishing the sea will be difficult. The fact that you won't go down in the Dead Sea is common knowledge. It's so dense and mineral, rich that you might mistake it for olive oil with sand rather than water, and it's 8 or 9 times saltier than the world's oceans. For decades, visitors to the Holy Land or Jordan took pictures of bathers reading newspapers while sitting bolt upright on the water's surface to demonstrate the extraordinary qualities of the water. But in a region where an arid climate and the need to irrigate fields combine to create a persistent water deficit, the Dead Sea serves as both a unique ecosystem and a sensitive barometer of the state of the environment. The Dead Sea, as you may know, is drying up. One can see why this would make for a catchy headline, but it's not entirely true. The rate of evaporation increases in tandem with the density and saltiness of the water as the level drops. So it could get much smaller, but it wouldn't go away entirely. However, its surface level is falling at an alarming rate of more than a meter, 3 feet, per year. The lowest point on Earth is determined annually based on the level of the Dead Sea, which is currently 420 meters, 1,380 feet, below sea level. It's so deep that your ears will pop, as they would on a plane landing as you drive along the winding road to the beach. Imagine the Grand Canyon with Lake Como tucked into its depths, and you'll have an idea of the surreal, lunar quality of the Dead Sea landscapes. Even if they didn't know exactly what it was, the ancients knew that this place was special. Stories about how Cleopatra used local products like asses, milk, and almond extract in her beauty routine are common in the Middle East, even though such practices were undoubtedly mythical. King Herod, who had a winter palace nearby, may have visited as well for the health benefits, though his tarnished reputation makes him less credible as a classical celebrity endorser. The Dead Sea was so strategically important to the Romans when they ruled the Middle East that they fortified the roads leading to and from the sea. Salt was so valuable at the time that it was even used as currency. And the claimed health advantages make sense. Since I suffer from asthma, I can attest to the fact that the extremely low barometric pressure here may improve breathing conditions. The combination of mineral-rich water, soothing mud, and bright sunlight appears to help those with the severe skin disease psoriasis. Therapeutic travel for people with diseases is funded by health agencies and organizations in several countries. Therefore, the Dead Sea still has economic value despite its shrinking and changing. Both Jordan and Israel welcome tourists to their resorts, and both countries export cosmetics made locally. Palestinians will likely benefit economically from the sea in the future because a portion of the shoreline is in the West Bank under Israeli control. The water level drop has been incredible, though. To gauge the depth of the water during World War I, British engineers etched their initials into a rock. Even after a century, the scratch marks remain on the bare rock. To reach the current water level, one must first descend the rocks, then cross a busy main road, then make their way through a dense, marshy thicket, and finally cross a vast mud flat. The total length is close to 2 kilometers, 1.25 miles. A major issue has arisen due to the receding water line a few kilometers up the coast in the popular tourist destination of Engedi. Near the end of the 1980s, when the main building housing the restaurant, shower block, and souvenir shop was finished, the waves began lapping against the walls. The resort had no choice but to buy a special railway that uses a tractor to lower visitors to the water's edge, another token journey. For Nir Vanger, who manages tourism in Engedi, this rapid transformation is unsettling. He explains, "The sea was exactly here when I was 18. This is not from 500 or 1,000 years ago. We spend $500,000 every year on the tractor, the gasoline, and the workers necessary to chase the Dead Sea, which is now 2 kilometers away. All my life I have spent on the Dead Sea, and the last few years have been particularly difficult, as I have witnessed the decline and eventual disappearance of the landscape I have known and loved all my life. My wife asked if I wanted a view of the sea when we were building a new house, but I told her that since mountains are stationary while the sea is always changing, I much preferred having a view of the mountains. So it's easy to see the appeal of the Dead Sea, with its odd chemistry, harsh microclimate, and towering camel-colored mountains. A view that, save for the occasional multi-story concrete hotel, Herod and Cleopatra would still recognize. However, geologists simply see it as the Jordan River's final lake. A river feeds into it on one end, but the water remains stagnant and eventually evaporates because there is nowhere for it to go. To say that the river that flows into the Dead Sea is dying is an exaggeration, but the opposite is true. True, water rushes through the wadis, or stony gullies, during the brief rainy season due to flash flooding. However, even though these are dry for the majority of the year, the river is barely a trickle. In some parts of Israel and the occupied West Bank, you can practically walk over it when the weather is dry. Christ was baptized in the Jordan River, which at one time was one of the world's most important rivers. It was always a raging river, and during wet winters, it could even flood in the modern era. Religious as well as scientific or navigational considerations played a role in the 1847 decision to send a naval expedition to study Jordan on behalf of the United States government. A brave officer named William F. Lynch led the mission, and he should be remembered for being the first to realize that the Dead Sea is lower than the surrounding seas. Even though Lynch tends to characterize the region's indigenous people in terms that irritate 21st century civilities, his account of his exploits is fascinating. His description of the river is fascinating. At one point, he encounters a series of waterfalls that measure 5 meters in height, separated by rapids, and he worries that the expedition will lose one or more of its boats. At the ruins of an old bridge, which the raging, foaming river now poured over like a mountain torrent, he writes, we came to a halt. The width of the river was roughly 30 yards. 80 years later, when the Jordan was still flowing, a Russian Zionist engineer named Pinchas Rutenberg built a hydroelectric power station in the valley. The deserted buildings from that facility can still be seen today. In recent years, a lot of changes have occurred. The landscape hasn't changed, of course. While the northern Jordan empties into the Sea of Galilee, the southern Jordan leaves the Sea of Galilee and empties into the Dead Sea. However, in the last few decades, water entering and leaving that system has fluctuated greatly due to the complex politics surrounding water in the Middle East. Even though Israel has steadily increased the amount of fresh water produced by desalination plants in the Mediterranean, the Galilee is regarded as a critical strategic water asset because of the dam that it built across the southern section of the Sea of Galilee, giving it control over the amount of water flowing into the Jordan. 10 years before the dam was built, in the 1950s, the Israeli government began taking water from the Jordan Valley system. The situation is problematic for farmers in Jordan and the Palestinian West Bank who need water to grow food for their families. Israel has the resources and technology to ensure its people always have access to clean drinking water, but the country still faces its unique challenges. Syria's Yarmouk River is a major source of water for the Jordan River. More than 40 dams have been built in Syria over the past 30 years to regulate the water in Yarmouk, which once supplied the Jordan River. When the Dead Sea dries up, what will happen to it? The Dead Sea is one of the saltiest bodies of water on the planet due to its high salinity and mineral content, and it is located between Jordan and Israel. But climate change, decreased water flow from the Jordan River, and human activity like mining and tourism are contributing to the sea's gradual but steady receding. The ecosystem, including flora and fauna and local communities that rely on the Dead Sea for their livelihoods, would be devastated if it were to completely dry up. The high salt content of the ocean provides ideal conditions for the growth of halophytic, salt-loving, plants and bacteria that would perish in fresh water. If the ocean dries up, many marine species will lose their homes and undergo population declines or even extinction. Our today's video has now come to a close. If you found that entertaining, you should also watch the other fantastic videos we have posted. There's a ton of awesome stuff waiting for you here. Remember to click the subscribe button if you're interested in receiving daily updates about our new content. We appreciate you tuning in and hope to have you back for the next episode.